Alrighty, boys and girls, today we got a special treat. 2003 Baja with 250,000 miles on it. And it is running like absolute crap right now. It is spitting, sputtering, and misfiring and doing all kinds of crazy things. And turn that off. What I've been told so far, they've replaced the idle air control and put that back in now after the new IAC did not fix the issue, and they put a new set of spark plugs in it. And they couldn't tell me the code it was from, but they said it was IAC. I'm assuming it's a P1512. We shall see here, unless they cleared the codes, which they might have already cleared the codes. See what we can get going here. No codes present, of course, so they must have cleared the codes last time they messed with it, or the battery died. So let's check history. Maybe there's something in there. Probably not. Oh, 1510 idle air control, 1512 idle air control, 1514, 1516. All idle air control valve, low input malfunctions, valve 1, valve 2, valve 3, valve 4. And a 0032 oxygen sensor heater control circuit high. Bank 1 sensor 1. So let's see what we can figure out. No, that's not what I want. Should have wrote down some of those codes. What was it? 1510? No. I'm thinking 1514 was one. Valve control signal 3, circuit low input. This motor is the first DC voltage type motor. Plunger connected to the idle speed control motor is used to actuate the amount of throttle opening at idle. And so the IAC is basically a little plunger that moves in and out to allow more or less air into, bypass the throttle body to set your idle speed. So they said they removed the old IAC, they cleared all the carbon off of it, they cleaned the throttle body, and they cleaned out the IAC bore, so we don't have any issues with that. Possible causes: idle air control valve malfunction, which I don't believe we had because they've swapped it around two or three other IAC motors they had laying around from Subarus and put a new one on it, and that didn't fix the issue. Possible cause: other wire harness or poor connections. So without getting too far into this, what we're going to do is go to our lab scope, and we are going to do some checks on this IAC motor to see if the motor is functioning correctly, or if we've got an engine, or if we got a wiring issue. So oh, that's IAT, not IAC. IAC valve, automatic transmission. It's a 4-coil stepper motor. PCM uses continuous changes in the pintle position in the bypass passage to maintain desired idle speed. PCM extends or retracts pintle by grounding the individual coils in sequence. So let's do a DC voltage test to see what we've got going on here. Like I said, it's a 4 signal, so we got 4 different signals to check here at point A, B, C, or D. Let's see. A is signal A, C is signal C, B is signal B, D is signal B. And they are around the perimeter. 1 is our ignition power, and pin 2 is ignition power. Okay, so ignition power A and C come off of 1. Then the computer will ground A or C. Ignition power for B and D comes in on 2, and then B or D will provide a ground from the computer for those. So let's get this test set up and see what we can figure out. Actually, before we do all that, I think we're going to go ahead and do a resistance test on this first, just to check the resistance in the coils and the IAC motor. Well, before going into all the tests I was planning to do on this IAC, I think I've already located the issue with this car. I was looking around the IAC valve, and what I found is, I believe the throttle cable is out of adjustment. There's no slack in them, and the throttle blades are not closing all the way. It is not going back to the default rest position. As you can see, these are taut. There should be a hair of slack in them, so what I'm going to do is adjust these throttle cables, put a little bit of slack in them, get that throttle body to shut where it should, and I'm going to start the car and see if that's fixed our issue. If not, we'll go into testing this IAC motor. Alrighty, we got some slack in these lines now like they're supposed to have, and the throttle blade is now, the stops are now resting on this pin like they're supposed to. So there's a little bit of slack now, so hopefully we fixed our issue. Let's see. Okay, maybe not. All right, so after giving it a little bit of throttle, we've got it to halfway idle. This idling still too low and threatening to cut off on us, but it's better than it was when I first got here. So going to open up the scanner and check a couple little things real quick, and we'll report back in. Okay, fun stuff. We're in the factory service manual flow chart at this point. First step is to check battery voltage for the supply at the IAC, which we do have. Our voltage is at least battery voltage, so now I am down here having the fun at our PCM. We're going to check resistance between all 4 ground pins at the IAC motor and the PCM to make sure we don't have any issues in our wiring. Since they've already replaced the IAC motor with a new one, I doubt the IAC motor is the issue. So we either have an issue in our wiring or we have a PCM issue. So I'm going to get this apart, start doing some checks, and I will check back in with you when I have something to check in with. All right, so here's our setup. We need to check resistance between 4 pins in this PCM connector compared to the 4 pins for the grounds on the IAC motor. Make sure that there is no continuity between these pins and those pins and ground, and there's no resistance or next to no resistance between the two, that they are not short at each other or somewhere else in the harness. Here's a quick little schematic. We're testing PCM connector B134, which is a gray connector in the ECU, and the black E7 connector at the AAC motor. And there's my crudely drawn pinout and the two connected. All right, check resistance between those pins. There's a resistance less than 1 ohm. It was, so go to step 4, check harness between PCM and idle control solenoid. Disconnect the computer, measure resistance between computer connector and chassis ground. So we're going to check between pin number 5, 6, 19, and 20 and chassis or battery ground to see if the resistance is less than 10 ohms. All right, is the resistance less than 10 ohms? No, it's not. It is no continuity. So step 5, check for poor contact. Check for poor contact in the ECM connectors and the idle air control valve connectors. So let's check those pins. All right, so I looked at the IAC motor connector, and a lot of the pins looked like they were smushed down. So what I did was I popped off this little cover plate, took a small pick, and expanded every one of those pins. I'm going to put it back together to see what that does, if anything. Hopefully that was the issue. Hopefully it was just a bad connection here, because from the checks it appears that all the wiring is good to the IAC motor, and they've installed a new one and 2 other used Subaru ones, so I doubt they've got that many bad ones, but we will see when I get this back together. Well, I've replaced the IAC myself with the one that they provided. I have checked all the wiring between the IAC and the PCM, all of that checked out as it should. So the fact that I clear the code and it immediately throws it again, and the fact that this idle is not coming down. It's idling much smoother than it was, but it's idling between 1,000 and 1,200 RPM right now, which is far too high. It should be around 700-800 RPM. I believe we have a bad PCM. I believe that the driver in the PCM that grounds that pin is gone bad. So what I'm going to try to do is see if in my Subaru scrapyard I have a PCM that will work in this Baja. All right, so they had a Rec 2004 2.5 Impreza wagon around back, and it had the PCM in it. It's a 5N PCM instead of a 4C that's in this Baja. But let's see what happens. Reverse, drive, back to park, no loads other than the headlights, and we are idling 700-800 RPM like we should. No issues. Turn the AC on. Idle increases like it should instead of dropping. AC back off. Our idle drops back down. Put it in reverse, into drive, and we are good. So off camera, between when I jumped on last and came back to this, I thought about it and went through and went ahead and did a signature test with the lap scope, and I was seeing that there was no change, no switching on that one circuit. So as far as I could conclude, that basically solidified the fact that the driver and the PCM that grounds that one coil, since it is a 4-coil IAC motor, and depending on position, the computer grounds one of those 4 coils. The ground was missing for that one coil on that one circuit that kept throwing the code. Putting a new PCM in there, that is no longer the case. So of course that basically confirms to me that the PCM was bad. We had a bad driver that was not able to ground that pin on the IAC motor. So I don't know if this computer is going to be compatible to run this car from here out. We might have to find another Baja computer. I don't know if the Impreza computer will work. We have a check engine light still, but we did have a code for an oxygen sensor heater circuit. So I will scan the car, see if that's the issue, if it's just throwing the O2 sensor code, or if that idle air control code is still active. But from the way it's idling and the way it's running, I can basically confirm that idle air control issue is no longer present. So I know we were kind of all over the place with this video. I didn't get much on camera working on it, and I know the lighting is crap in here right now. It's kind of like a deep dark dungeon in this shop, and I didn't have any of my supplies, any of my lights with me, so I'm sorry for the darkness and bad video quality, but hey, you might have learned something. Thank you so much for watching. I will see y'all in the next video.